This episode of Walt Disney World Today is being sponsored by Owner's Locker. Ponchos, spray bottles, sweaters with characters on them, resort mugs. What do these all have in common? This is all junk people bring to Walt Disney World from their homes and wherever they live, and they just bring it back and forth each different trip. Why not have all that stuff and more waiting in your Owner's Locker in Orlando and then delivered to your resort? That's just a few things that'll be something you don't have to pack and something that'll be delivered to your resort for you to use. Owner's Locker provides that service for you. Give them a try. Go to www.ownerslocker.com.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, July 21st, 2008, and this is episode 438 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hotchford of StudioCentral.com. On the show today, I wanted to take a moment and really highlight one of our panelists who really goes above and beyond the Call of Duty. But you know what? This person really doesn't get a whole lot of praise for their work. They're often quiet in the background, not really saying much a lot of the times. But, you know, after 438 episodes, I think it's time we honored this panelist because, you know, he may not say a lot, but gosh darn it, he deserves all the credit. Len Testa, co-author of the Official Guide to Walt Disney World. Nice job, Len.
Said it better. Oh.
I hate all of you. So Matt, I got a bicycle this weekend, and here's what I've learned about riding a bike.
Okay.
You are so much closer to roadkill, like as you drive by it on your bicycle, than you are in a car or in running.
A very smart observation, Len.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Also joining us on the show, just another Joe on the panel. It's Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
When you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
That's what you get.
Mike. Also on the show today is Mike Scopa of allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
This is ironic. Here's my podcast opening. I hate all of you.
Oh, rock and roller coaster.
Right.
Very good. And also joining us is Annette Owens of MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. Welcome, Annette.
Hi. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday. And put down your razor blades. It's time for another episode of Walt Disney World Today. And this episode of Walt Disney World Today is about kind of the rookie mistakes, the mistakes that a lot of first-timers, people who are still new to Walt Disney World, you know, not necessarily, I hate to say first-timers, that infers that after your first trip you become an instant genius and you know everything, because let's face it, people that are new to Walt Disney World may make some mistakes, and we want to try to help those who are planning trips for the first time, maybe you're the one who's in charge of it this time, from avoiding some mistakes that are out there. And I think this will go into really everything that we're going to be talking about. And I think the global tip that we can provide is planning ahead. And I think, Len, you brought this point to my attention, and I've used it many, many times and given you no credit for it. But you've often said that people spend, you know, thousands of dollars on their trip to Walt Disney World and do zero research. At the same time, someone who goes to buy a washer and dryer or a car or anything else that costs thousands of dollars at home, they'll go and read consumer reports. They'll go and ask they'll do like everything. They'll spend hours researching these topics. But for some reason, planning a trip to Walt Disney World, people think that you just show up to it.
Yeah, it's true. I think people don't put as much emphasis on planning for their Walt Disney World vacation as they do for other major multi-$1,000 purchases, and it's really silly because your experience, the enjoyment of your experience is going to be proportional to how much work you put in up front. That's all I'm saying. I mean, you can't expect it. I mean, it's magical, and the commercials make it look like it's wonderful, but you really do have to do a little bit of work, like anything, like any destination, right?
Yeah,
to make it fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the beach where you just go to the beach, you show up, you put your mat down, and that's it. You're done. You know, I mean, there's so much.
You put your mat down. You construct your still. You put your rebel flag out. You crank up the Leonard Skinner tunes and slosh on some baby oil and that big reflecting thing, and you call it a day, right?
Just another weekend for Annette. I know.
Right. I wasn't the one just at the beach now.
So yeah, but it's funny because you see the people all the time. You know, you see them show up at the park. They walk to the center of the central hub of the Magic Kingdom. They get there about 10 o'clock. They open up the park map and they start figuring out what they want to do.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you don't want to do. You don't want to be that. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Exactly.
So Annette, someone calls you. It's their first trip to Walt Disney World. What's the first? Let's get a little more specific here. What's the first thing you'll tell them?
Well, first of all, you got to figure out when they're wanting to go, and maybe talk a little bit about the different seasons, the different weeks they're possibly looking to go.
Mm-hmm.
Have that conversation about. Have that conversation about, do you want to go in the summer when everybody's out of school? Do you want to go during the, then you would start talking about maybe what type of accommodations they were wanting to stay, because you don't want to do that last minute. That could be kind of disastrous. That's right.
You want to make sure that you research the options for a resort, because there isn't just a resort, and you just, the names and themes are different. I mean, that's one aspect of it, but it's obviously location, how much you're willing to pay for the resort. And you obviously, with the resort, it's transportation options to the parks that you want to keep in mind, because those are really going to be important for you to plan your trip. Because if you're renting a car, you have a little more option versus someone who's going to be reliant on transportation. I know that there's a lot of people who say, I'm going to be staying at, you can insert any hotel, any offsite hotel here. And I'll say, well, how are you going to get to the parks? And they'll say, well, they have a shuttle or something.
A shuttle? Oh, dear God.
And I tell them, I mean, it sounds good on paper, right? You look at the website, hey, there's a shuttle to Walt Disney World. Perfect. I'm all set.
And Amelia Earhart had a plan, too. Oh.
But if you have somebody that's been to... If you've had somebody that's been to Disneyland over and over again, and they're coming to Disney World for the first time, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's not, you're just going to walk across the parking lot and here you are.
Yeah, so if we can be specific here, let's say, research your resort and also research your transportation options. And basically, I think we'd all agree you want to probably avoid, I think, any of the off-site bus shuttles to the parks. I can't think of any that I would recommend to anyone. I think that they're all, they have 2 trips in the morning and 2 trips back or something like that. It's just very inconvenient, and they don't adjust to park hours. So if the park hours are longer, like if the park's open until 12, the last bus may leave back to the resort at, 7 o'clock, because that's how they have it set for the whole year.
Exactly.
Among other problems. We don't want to get, terribly into this, but that's one thing you want to do. Scopa, what's something else you want to avoid as a rookie to Walt Disney World?
Well, I think that Len touched upon the importance of planning, and when you plan, you get to gather all this data and knowledge. And one of the things that I think that's important is that everyone needs to have a realistic idea as to how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, good point.
And Len, the thing that I always think about is that commercial we see on television where the horses are galloping and the mom says, "Honey, come here."
It's a great commercial, but I mean, it's pure fiction.
Right. And the thing is that you don't want to either underestimate or overestimate your cost. You want them to be realistic. And it starts off with the research. It starts off, like Annette said, when are you going? When are you going? The time of your trip, the length of your trip, the resort that you're going to stay in. I mean, that all plays into this as to how much it will cost you, and you need to have an open mind, and you need to be aware that there are so many factors that come into the actual cost. So I guess what I'm saying is that you really don't want to underestimate your costs. And that commercial says, I think it says $1,600 or $1,700.
$1,600 for a family of 4, yeah.
Family of 4 for 6 nights, 7 days, and I don't think that includes a park hopper pass. I don't think that includes meal. So that's just admission and staying at a value. So I really think that that's important. And let's face it, it all comes down to how much you can afford before you determine how you're going to go and if you're going to go.
Transportation costs aren't included in that. Somebody online did an overview of that and said that it's going to be more like $2,900 when all is said and done for the average family with food and transportation and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, you definitely want to look into those things. And a lot of the prices are available.
Right.
I mean, you can find menus online that have prices of everything there that you can reasonably expect to pay. You have the cost obviously for transportation if you're going to be renting a car, hotels. I mean, these are all things you can have. You can put together a pretty good budget. And again, this all goes back to planning ahead and doing the work and putting the time in, and it'll pay off rather than you coming home to a huge credit card bill or
we've all done that.
Yeah, or the alternative is you having a vacation where you eat ramen soup the entire week. We've also all done that too.
Ramen. Actually, I did macaroni and cheese, but yeah, okay, same thing.
Brings back the old college days, huh?
Fancy pants macaroni and cheese. Yeah. That's not 10 cents a package, baby.
Man, that was the best 8 years of my life.
So yeah, Scopa mentioned something that was interesting I wanted to hit upon, which is the admission options there, because it's not as simple as just saying I want a ticket to Walt Disney World. You want to look at what you're going to be doing and looking at park hopper, water park options, right, Annette?
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's a lot of different things to look at. You've got park hopping, you've got water parks, you've got is everybody going to want to go to water park more than one day? Mm-hmm. Are you going off property to visit another Orlando attraction? There's a lot of different things to play with the park tickets. The biggest
mistake I see first timers make is they don't get the park hopper option because they think they're not going to use it, and then they go about 2 days into it and they say this stinks. We need the park hopper option. And what happens is you can still get it. Obviously, you can add it on, but you're wasting time. You know, you first of all, maybe those 2 days that you had spent before without the option, maybe you kind of forced yourself into a situation that wasn't ideal, and you could have avoided that. It might take away from your vacation experience. So you want to really look into that, and don't let little things like that play into the taking away from your vacation as a whole.
Right. So is this the part where I talk about my my idea about swimming into the Magic Kingdom using it from the from the lake?
No,
we're gonna do a whole separate show on that, right?
Yeah, whole separate show on that. Yeah,
all right, great. Okay, all right, just checking. All right, good.
Scopa, you might want to talk about this next thing that I had on my list over here, which was dining. Because I think of all the things that I think everyone knows, you need a park ticket to get in the parks. You need a flight. That's obvious. I think the thing that's the least obvious to first timers is dining at Walt Disney World, because it's not just walking up and hey, I liked Le Cellier. That sounds like a great place, but let's just go walk up there.
Well, Matt, this ties into another thing that I was thinking about, and that is that when someone says, if someone's sitting at the family table and they're saying, hey, let's go to Disney World, at that point, the very next moment, they should start doing research. They should start determining when they're going to go. It's not one of those trips where you can say, hey, well, we've done it, but I was going to say, hey, let's go next week, because that's just not going to wash, because like you said, with the way the restaurants have become so popular, and because of the dining plan, and because of sometimes during the year there is free dining offered, it really requires you to call 180 days ahead of time if you want to make a reservation at one of the better restaurants. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, first timers especially, don't understand that it's not a vacation resort where you can do a walk up and say, I'd like a table for 4, please, at Le Cellier. And, it's not going to, they're not going to turn around and say, would you like that today? They're going to say, would you like that,
right,
in a year or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a very, very important point. Dining at Disney is something you really need to do research on and understand, the involvement it takes to plan your dining as well as your touring plans for the parks.
Absolutely. Another thing that comes to mind is researching some things. If you've got younger children, if you're going with kids that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you want to look at things like there's little things I think you have to keep in mind that may be overlooked for first timers especially. Height requirements comes to mind. I mean, I know I've been in line a lot of times with kids who have been really eager to go ride Rock and Roller Coaster or Tower of Terror or Splash Mountain, and then they get to the cast member who puts them next to the little to the height meter over there, and they're too short. And that kid has been the entire week, months before the trip saying, I can't wait to ride Splash Mountain. I can't wait. And the parents are like, oh, you're gonna have fun on it? You really gonna ride it? Oh yeah, Dad, I'm gonna do it. And then oh gosh, no.
Ouch.
I mean, unfortunately, it really makes for some bad experiences. You know what I mean? And that's something you have to. Those again, they're all posted around there, so you want to keep that in mind for sure.
I think kind of with that age range that you just talked about, one of our previous shows where we did some of the attractions that you might want to be a little cautious on. I know my brother took my nephew, and I told him, don't go to Stitch. Don't go to Stitch. It'll scare him.
Right.
And that was the first place they went, and he was scared the rest of the week and wouldn't ride anything. So, you definitely want to have an idea about a little bit about the scariness or some idea about the ride before you go and just throw your young child on it.
Scopa?
I think that before we finish the show, Matt, I think the most important point that we need to make to those people who are thinking about going for the very first time, that they really need to be ready physically for a trip to Walt Disney World. And that means being able to, understand that, you're going to be standing for a long time waiting for a parade. You're going to be doing a lot of walking. There's going to be a lot of physical activity. And that means making sure that you're wearing comfortable shoes and being ready for it. I think lots of times parents will bring their children. It's like, oh my God, I didn't realize it'd be so much walking, especially those people who've been to Disneyland, but not to Disney World. So being prepared physically and making sure you have comfortable walking shoes is so important.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes into some other things. A lot of times I know people who've brought kids who are beyond the stroller age at home, but there's a lot of walking in Walt Disney World. And with the heat that comes into play,
right.
There's a lot of kids that may revert back. They'll need that stroller in the afternoon, but they may not, quote unquote, need the stroller. So you may want to look at an option for a cheap stroller you can kind of get, or maybe leave it at the resort and grab it during an afternoon break. And that's something else I think we should mention is an afternoon break, because the afternoon break allows you to get. A lot of people think they can just go from park's open from 9 to 10 tonight. All right, that's where we're going to be all day, and yeah, exactly. You're gonna run into that wall. Somebody in that party is gonna run into that wall before another one, and you don't want to end up in that situation where everyone is mad, everyone's annoyed, everyone's hot and tired. That's the kind of situations you want to avoid. And a lot of first timers forget about the importance of a good afternoon break. Some other things I want to mention. This one, I think we overlook this tip a lot. A lot of first timers are. It shocks me really. They don't know how FastPass works. You don't know how many people walk up to cast members and ask how much FastPass costs.
$20.
That there is FastPass, that you can use it. You can use it more than once, and it is kind of confusing because, there isn't you can't tell a person definitively, okay, after X amount of time you can reuse your FastPass. It depends. And it is free. And that's something I think a lot of people they don't know about. And I think a lot of our listeners know what FastPass is, but if you're the person who's listening to this podcast and you're helping plan a trip for first timers, you want to help other people in your party avoid these mistakes. Again, FastPass is something you should look into because it's very simple to understand, but a lot of people just don't know about it because they don't put any research into it. And unfortunately, that ends up in a situation where people don't take advantage of it.
Another thing that we are advising our clients about a lot is the parent swap. A lot of people don't realize about that. So, you find that, and I've seen this myself where there's been parents out there with a little one and they're going, well, who's going to go ride? Well, I really wanted to ride this. And they don't realize that they can swap. So that's something, we do spend time with our first time clients letting them know, some of these things that can help them, save them a little bit of time and help a little bit in their planning.
That's a good point, Annette. You definitely want to avoid those kinds of anything that can save time, anything that make your trip a little bit better. That's always important. Anyone have anything else they'd like to throw on there, Scopa?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add, Matt, is I think that there are a whole bunch of things we could talk about, but we don't have that much time. I think that people should try to do research as to what discounts are available. Just don't settle in on rack rates. Don't settle on what you see initially. Look into that. Use a travel vacation planner if you can. And also, I think that people need to take seriously the debate about being on the property or off the property. There are some values that are off the property that would work for some people, and yet there are those that are on the property. There are some pros and cons to being on the property. I think that people need to look at convenience, a whole bunch of things. So, you can go many areas, Matt, but I think it all boils down to what Len said at the beginning of the show, and that is do research. That will take care of a lot of the things that we've discussed.
Absolutely. And this is just really part of it. Obviously there's a lot of episodes where we talk about a lot of these things in depth, but these are some classic rookie mistakes that you definitely want to avoid. Well, that's it for us today. We want to mention again that the sponsor for today's episode is Owner's Locker, which is a great service for storing all of your stuff in Walt Disney World. So that way, on each trip, you put your stuff in your Owner's Locker, you go home, then you come back, hopefully very soon, and you have your Owner's Locker delivered to you. They can even text message you when it's arrived at the resort, so you know definitively it's there waiting for you. It's a great service. You can put all your stuff there, less stuff to pack, less stuff to lug. Fantastic. Try them out. Visit them at www.ownerslocker.com. For Len Testa, Mike Newell, and Mike Scopa, and Annette Owens, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.